Now that we have Godzilla vs. King Kong out of the way, we can start working on some of the more important versus series that we've been waiting for, like Godzilla vs. Jar Jar Binks. And of course, King Kong vs. SpongeBob. Keep pounding away there, fella. You'll get him eventually. So I want to do a little bit of a different kind of review for this film. Everyone who's going to talk about whether they like it, they dislike it, the good, the bad, that kind of a thing, I pretty much agree with much of what's already out there. The monsters are fantastic. The fighting is awesome. The plot is overprocessed and at times incredibly convoluted. The humans, however, that's a more interesting story to me, honestly. More specifically, I'm interested in how the humans and villainy are portrayed in this film together. And at a certain point in this review, I'm going to have a very important question for all of you. So stick around. Now, before we jump into the human villainy in this film, we got to do a little bit of background context work here. In the 2015 Godzilla, what I thought they did really well in that movie is, right away we kind of saw where humans stand in this ecosphere of Earth, Titan monsters, and human beings. We very quickly learn there's not that much that we can do here. So instead of trying to continually bang our heads against the wall and throw our little bullets and bombs at these things, which do nothing, at a certain point, we start to realize what we need to do is take care of each other, take care of what's in front of us, and strategize ways that we can help support Godzilla in his fight against these other Titan monsters. And I thought that that was very smart. The problem, of course, is that us human beings don't really sit well in positions of vulnerability for very long. So when we move into Godzilla, King of the Monsters, we start to see us try to reassert ourselves as the dominant species in this ecosphere through technology. We try to manipulate the Titan monsters, and of course, ultimately, it doesn't really work out the way that we want it to, and we pay the ultimate price by bringing upon ourselves even more destruction and chaos. The one thing we seem to do really well in these movies is die. And that segues us into Godzilla vs. Kong. I think the continuing evolution of this story arc of humans trying to find ways to reassert themselves as the dominant species actually makes quite a lot of sense if you think about the way we just interact with each other as a species. We often look for ways to assert our dominance over others. So I'm totally fine with this storyline that the Apex Corporation, led by Walter Simmons, is trying to once again find a way to assert itself as the apex predator in this ecosphere of Earth, Titan monsters, and humans. But the question that I have for you is this: are they villains for doing this? Clearly, the movie wants us to think that they are, right? At a certain point, Walter's daughter even says, as they're going through the center of the world, Walter's daughter says something like, "My father always gets what he wants." And then she grabs the power thing and tries to run off. I mean, it's movie villainy 101, essentially, right? Steal the idea, leave the good guys behind, and go get your power. Okay, so the movie wants us to think of them as villains, but are they? Let's take a little closer look here and actually see. One thing that's potentially villainous that the Apex Corporation does is they link Ghidorah's mind to Mechagodzilla. Why? Science? At one point, the character Bernie says that the brains were so far away from the body in Ghidorah that they had to converse with each other telepathically, which is, I guess, supposed to be the thing that tells us how Ghidorah's dead mind is able to be telepathic to Mechagodzilla? You see, this is what I mean by at times you just make this a bit convoluted, quite honestly. So is what they're doing evil? Well, I wouldn't necessarily call stupidity evil. You've got all this technology in Mechagodzilla, and you have a pilot, right? The gentleman who's essentially running what Mechagodzilla does. Why you don't have anything in place that can disrupt that flow of Ghidorah's telepathy to Mechagodzilla and just shut it down just sounds like bad programming to me. I mean, you might as well have Mechagodzilla hooked up to Alexa. Alexa, turn off Mechagodzilla.
Sorry, I didn't find a device named Mechagodzilla.
Thanks, Alexa. So let's move on to the most egregious thing that they do. There's no way around the fact that the Apex Corporation in their Mechagodzilla project is responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people, and of course billions of dollars worth of destruction to their infrastructure and just the general chaos that it causes. So, what actually happens here? What do they do? Well, every time they turn on Mechagodzilla to test its powers against these other Titan little monsters, right? It tends to draw Godzilla's ire and draw his eye toward the mainland where it is. So we come to learn that Godzilla is essentially coming after Mechagodzilla. For a long time in this movie, we don't know why Godzilla is coming to the mainland. Does that mean every time I turn on my Ipod, I have to worry that Godzilla is coming to kill me? And yes, I do still have an Ipod that I use. Wow, there's a lot of Avril Lavigne here. I mean, Metallica. So yes, they kill a lot of people, and they cause a tremendous amount of destruction every time they turn on Mechagodzilla to test it. But doesn't it also, in a weird way, prove their point? There was nothing that we could do against Godzilla here. Nothing. I mean, he just destroyed at will, coming after the Mechagodzilla machine. Who's to say he's not going to come after something else that we don't know about? That we just sit there and go, we don't know what he's doing. He's just going to destroy all of us here. Let's not forget the fact that at the end of Godzilla, King of the Monsters, there are more of these things. And if they ever decided to come together and just kill Godzilla, we're in big trouble, because I don't think Kong is enough, and even maybe Godzilla and Kong might not be enough to fight back against all the Titan monsters that are around us, apparently. I don't think building a Titan monster that we can control is really all that bad of an idea in this specific universe. I'm not talking about in real life. I'm talking about in this Titan universe. I don't think it's really that bad of an idea. Additionally, if you think about it, Walter actually succeeds. He creates this Mecha Titan that's able to beat Godzilla and almost beat Godzilla and King Kong if Kong doesn't find his thorax. Thorax? That's not a joke. That could have gone somewhere. Now, the producer of this film, Alex Garcia, actually had a couple of comments to make about the Walter character. He says that Walter is a very complex character who believes he's doing the right thing. And he may be, but that's where the mystery at the core of the film comes into play. Well, Mr. Garcia, I'm going to have to disagree with you here. It might have been the case that Walter was written to be a complex character, but in the final production of the movie, he ain't. He's just kind of a money-hungry, power-hungry, typical villainous human being. And that makes it somewhat odd to watch. So what's our silver linings lesson for this film? Well, human beings are complex creatures. We can sometimes do the right things for the wrong reasons and the wrong things for the right reasons. It's one of the things that makes humanity so beautiful and complex. I think we can all understand the thought process behind human beings being so scared and so vulnerable that they would be willing to do just about anything that they can in order to make sure that our species continues to thrive in the way that it does, even if that means doing something that could potentially lead to our own destruction. In this sense, it's a real shame that Walter does not rise to the level of complexity here, because he could have represented just how much fear tends to run our choices as a species and as individual humans.